Answer the question in the title. No, actually, I think these are pretty good patch notes. I just want to try the clickbaity title thing and see how that works out. Feel free to give me shit in the comments down below. This is the Smite mid-season update patch notes, so these are going to be a doozy. Hopefully I can crank them out under 25 minutes. That's kind of my goal. New skins, I will categorically not give a shit. Some more bots, bug fixes, anything here? No. Yeah. That's a little thing. I don't know if it's actually changing it or not. Yeah, the Merlin bug is actually why he's not in ranked right now. Set also, they should be hotfixed. They should be in ranked right now. Double check. I'm not sure. I'm actually now coaching in the Smite Little Leagues. There will be a link to that in the description as well, so you can check it out on Twitch. So you can see my team, the Thunder Buddies. I didn't come up with the name to do all of that. Ranked, they're actually going to be ranked. This is actually pretty big. Queues are going to pop quicker, so every 7 minutes instead of every 9. On top of that, it's going to be, you're going to keep more of your rank that you had from the previous split. So there's going to be a new item tree, the Arthurian tree. The first one just gives you some CDR. These are all really, really interesting. The Hunter one actually lets everything crit an opponent that you ult. So it's a 15% crit chance on the enemy. So gods that don't typically have a chance to crit will be able to crit. So that's really interesting. Warriors and assassins, melee physical gods, get an ability that lets you... Let's see the best way to phrase this. It basically just puts a ward and you move quicker towards the warded target. Puts a ward on yourself, not on the opponent. I thought it was on your opponent for a while. So, also, they also take a lot more damage. So this is really potent, especially into some stealth gods. Staff of Mirrodin, which is the one everyone's talking about. This will let you cast a second ability at 70% of the magical damage or healing, but it's 100% of the cooldown. So I think this actually synergizes best with like Hubwa 3, Athena Taunt, things like that don't lose its main focus. And the last one is the defensive option for all characters. All characters have access to this one. Staff of Mirrodin is only for mages and guardians. The Pride Wind is kind of like Spirit's Robe, but gives you a big-ass shield when you ult that then damages people, which is really good. I think these are all very cheaply priced, if I'm going to be honest with you. Even 2,800 seems cheap for these, but we'll have to see. I don't think these are breaking the game. I just don't think that they're... I think they're very strong. I don't think the game is ruined because of them. But I do think they are overtuned for what they are. So this is essentially going to turn the meta into this big burst meta where everything's relying on your ultimate to have a huge impact. Contagion is essentially physical pestilence, which is actually really good. It's actually going to kind of hamper the meta, the healer meta a little bit. You saw SPL today. You saw a lot of healers come out. This is going to reduce it a little bit. These two are the same change, essentially. Hasten Ring is becoming a lot more expensive. Demonic Grip's a little more expensive. These are being focused to kind of hurt the mage carry meta, which is good. This is actually going to be one of several changes that helps hunters come back in. So you're going to see a lot more of gods like Ram, Jingwei, Hachiman, things like that come back into prominence into the meta. And the fall of gods such as Freya and Kronos. Doom Orb is getting a little bit of a change. Still, I don't think this one matters. Spear of Deso, the cooldown reduction whenever you get a kill or assist is going from 1 second to 2 seconds. That's actually pretty big. I didn't even really think Spear of Deso needed it. So if you're ever thinking it before on gods like Giannis, for example, really good now. Ethereal Staff is getting a price reduction, which is good. Even better is that it's indeed stealing away more max HP. So you can now go from up to 25% of 25% 5 from all of your opponents to up to 30% 6 from all of your opponents. This is really good. I think Ethereal Staff is undervalued, especially on a tanky bruiser like a Zhang Kui, for example, build who gets those easy procs, Jormungandr, gods like that. Hasten Katana is actually kind of like the Hasten Ring, where they're pushing that more towards a luxury item price point. It's still going to be core, but that's going to weaken gods like Kali and Bakasura. Jade Emperor's Crown, I'm going to scroll down a little bit to find it. Runic Shield, Gauntlet of Thebes, Bulwark of Hope, and Talisman of Energy are all making defensive characters a little stronger. Oh, I heard something back there. Gauntlet of Thebes, I think, has always been really good. I don't know why this needed a buff. The Bulwark, Talisman, I totally get. Runic is kind of this hybrid item. This is the one that lowers magical power of enemies nearby by 50. Very good. Now it's even tankier, which is a little interesting. And these items here, Talaria Boots, it's going from... The Traveler Shoes is 25 power, so this kind of makes some sense to keep it more in line with its magical counterpart. So this is actually... makes a lot of sense. It's still good, it's still useful. You're using this item for the mobility and sustain. Ninja Tabai, Chin Size, Wind Demon, Archival are actually powering up pretty much every build on Hunters, and I think this is actually all pretty good changes. So Power Pen builds are going to have 10% more attack speed than they used to, which I think is a pretty potent change. Archival being 2450 helps out some gods like Erlong Shen, things like that want to be very aggressive. So being at that price point means if you're going to be a boxing character, it's going to let you box much more effectively and quicker. Relic Dagger getting a boost to its Relic cooldown function. I think good players were already using Relic Dagger. No one's good at Smite, so I don't think this matters. Muzen Cobb's getting a lot of a decrease in his poke. The Swarm misses 2. And his bees, which is why he's so good right now, because he's just constantly damaging people, is getting cut almost in half. This is a good change. I think you'll see Muzen Cobb fall out of top pick contention, and you're going to actually see picks that really want just constant pressure, especially in mid lane, or if you know that you're not going to get jungle pressure, are going to see Muzen Cobb. I think he's going to fall out of casual and low tier ranked almost completely. On her is getting a buff on the front end on Shifting Sands, and Impale and Desert Fury are basically kind of getting a quality of life change. Impale's a slight buff. I think this is good for On her. He's still kind of still in the same niche. I don't think he's like going to get picked more, or you would pick him into more situations. But if you're going to play him, he's going to feel better now. Apollo's getting some big buffs. So the decrease in the movement speed and slow is going to be longer, which is really good for Apollo. And Audacity now adds 2 stacks every time you hit a god. And it appears that's each god you hit. So if you hit like all 5 enemies with So Beautiful in a team fight, you're going to get instant Audacity stacks. Apollo's going to be crazy. Silver Branch is really good on him on a pure attack speed build. And again, attack speed is going to be easier to build into now with the Chin Size and the Ninja Tabai, which he already likes. Apollo is going to be back in the meta way more, which was not at all at first, what he is right now. We'll see. Ares getting Searing Flesh buffs. It does now damage to minions, which is really good. That's really been his big problem, is he can't fight minions. And so he has this habit of getting behind because he can't clear ever. So now he's able to clear, it's going to do more damage to minions. I think that's a good buff for him. Ares is very fringy. You have to have a team that knows how to play with him, and you're going to be aggressive with him. So, Chuck, he's going to get a buff to Stormcall. His ultimate knocks people up rather than away, so he can follow up, and his team can follow up. And Torrent, which is that Axe Spin, the 2, better cooldown. He's still kind of just there. I don't think this really changes anything. Erlong Shen nerf, Spot Weakness, doing 10 damage less at all ranks. So it is actually much less potent very early, which is when Erlong Shen shines. We'll see. I think this... We'll see. I think he's still going to be good, but I think he's going to fall out of SPL a little bit, where he's kind of this like must-pick character. He's one of the most common junglers. I don't think that'll be the case, but I think people still play him into this early pressure. Fafnir, he's getting a little bit of his identity loss, but he's getting a lot more usability. Curse Strength, this is his hammer throw into the stun slow field, is going to be wider, so it'll be easier to hit, but Coerce is not as potent. Coerce is the ability that he has that amplifies attack speed and attack damage. So that's what facilitates objective control. So he is that god that you want in a double hunter comp, but he's always been very hard to play, very late game focus. We'll see. I think this nerfs him in terms of professional play, but if you can get a little bit more leeway with him with this increased curse strength. I said it last time that Freya was dead, and I was dead. The only thing I was dead about was how wrong I was. I was dead wrong. Freya is going back to being this late game character. Aurora Blade has lost pretty much 16 damage, 16 to 20. They've changed the damage up a lot, so now she's barely doing any. She does nothing at level 1 other than give her a ranged physical auto. But it's more scaling, so it helps as the late game goes, but it's a colossal nerf overall. She's going to be doing a lot less damage, and especially a lot less at level 1. She is now going to be extremely dangerous to play for the user, not for the opponents now, early on. Isis is getting a lot of utility buffs. Funeral Rites, which I believe is her passive that increases HP 5 and MP 5 for all her and her teammates, is now being a longer range, which is good. Spirit Ball, which is weird. She can now use it while she's dead. She can detonate it while dead. Okay. Also quicker to fire, quicker to detonate. Dispel Magic is actually now, instead of giving magical protection, it's giving a shield to her and her team, which is actually really good. And then Circle of Protection is now doing more healing and mitigating way more damage. Isis is now going to be firmly in this utility mage category, where if you've got like a Kali, if you've got a Bakasura, if you've got an Ao Kuang jungle, where you don't need your mid to be the damage output for your team, very good in that situation. Merlin's getting some more nerfs on almost everything. He is going to be able to stance switch less often. Eclipse, which is Arcane 1, is going to do less overall, and Blizzard is going to be harder to hit with. I think he's overvalued right now. I think he is overvalued, and these nerfs just kind of put him further into the ground. Nemesis is getting a change that makes a lot of sense. Damage reflection is going to be flat because the shield gets bigger, and healing you get is going to be flat again because the shield gets bigger, which is what calculates it. So it makes a lot of sense that they're doing it this way. I don't have a problem with it. Nemesis isn't getting played much. She is pretty good. It's just that there's so many good and highly viable junglers, and Nemesis doesn't really provide the control of a Ratatosker, or Humbots doesn't really have Ratatosker's early game, and can't really carry it like an Ao, or an Arachne can at low ranks, or things like that. Neja is getting less damage off the Universal Ring Toss when you hit someone multiple times, but now you've got to hit someone multiple times to get to 25% slow. So that's actually, I think this is a bigger change than people might think. But you'll have to take a look for yourself. Basically just hurts his ability to really just chase down and beat the crap out of enemies. So, Nike is bullshit now. Her passive went from the best part of her kit to useless. Now it's going to only give 3% power and 2% movement speed, down from 8 to 6. Rend is always going to hit 3 times, so now she's always going to hit like a freight train. It is still interruptible though, so she still has to be careful around a god like, say, Achilles. She no longer has plan of action, but she now has an ability called, I believe it's Barrier Formation they're calling it. So she's very slow, Camera moves slower, but she actually stops all ranged projectile, all ranged basics. So it's like an anti-hunter skill. And she pushes enemies back, and they can't really get out of it once they're in, and she's pushing them. So you can actually control someone like an improved Hercules control, doing that pull under the tower, and just keep someone under the tower as long as she wants, which is kind of ridiculous. So that's kind of her new niche, is that she's now got a unique way to stop hunters, and really might put an end to the double hunter meta. Valiant Leap always now goes at the fast speed, which I thought maybe shouldn't be quite that fast, but whatever. Sentinel of Zeus is actually now going to be not quite as good as it was with Plan of Action, but it is a buff. So now she doesn't get an increase in health if you use Plan of Action, because she doesn't have it now, but it's doing more than before. It's not as much as the old upgraded 2. Of note, she doesn't have her HP 5 that she used to have with Plan of Action, because she has Barrier Formation now. So she now has, she actually has 0 inherent sustain in her kit. So that's something to keep in mind. But we'll see. I think overall, really overtuned. I think Rend needs a little bit of a damage nerf. And Valiant Leap, they're going to leave the same speed, which isn't a big deal. But I think Ren needs a little bit of a damage nerf. And also, the barrier pushing enemies back is bullshit. Odin gets a buff on how frequently he can put his shield up. Odin still sucks. I love Odin. I love playing Odin support. I love Odin jungle. Don't like Odin solo, because this is clear is kind of eh. But he's useless now. For whatever reason, they ultimately gave Oleron a buff. Pay the gems for the new god. That's all I have to say. Rom is actually getting a little bit more of a usability buff more than anything else. I know Flare Boot did the data, so Austral Barrage's spread damage is going to be more towards the earlier shots, but it's doing less damage. So if you hit all 3 shots on a target, it does more than it used to. If you hit 1 and 2, it does more than it used to. If you hit 1, it does more than it used to. I think if you just hit the second shot, it does more. But if you're hitting the second and third compared to the old ult, it does less. And obviously, because of the change in the formula, if you are just going to hit them with the last shot, it does less than before. So it means that it's not as front-loaded. Sorry, back-loaded. My apologies. Scotty is getting a pretty big buff. If Kaldir is out, she gets 10% increased physical power. But Kaldir is going to be out of action for much less than before. Winter's Grasp, instead of it just spawning around where Kaldir is and Scotty now gets to throw Kaldir. It's now really good. Prepare for a new Scotty Hunter meta, especially with all those buffs I mentioned. Thor's getting another rework as well, which is actually really good. Fixing Manolier's attunement a little bit. Berserker's Barrage is, on paper, getting a nerf, actually. But you're going to be able to use it way more often. You're going to be able to get the full swing of it way more often than before. Plus, it's doing a little more on the final swing. So it's really, because of the way it's being built, it's kind of screwing you over. You can play tank Thor, like a Thor solo lane. But if you're Assassin Thor, he's going to be much more dangerous. And Anvil of Dawn does a lot more damage than it used to. Because now he gets a lightning effect. And for 6 seconds after he uses his ultimate, Berserker's Barrage, Manolier's Attunement, and his basics all have chain lightning effects. Thor is going to be pretty fucking crazy now. Be prepared for this new Isis Thor Scotty meta. Though he's getting a buff, the buff doesn't matter. It's doing less damage to minions, which is not good because it's his wave clear. It does way more damage to enemy gods as long as you can hit multiple times. If you can't, it doesn't really matter. I think Thoth is still towards the bottom of the barrel for mages. Sorry. Robin is getting a buff for no reason. 10-hand Shadow Fist, which is 3, that roots and heals him, is getting a 2-second cooldown buff. It's not going to change his play, but he didn't need to change. He was still very good. Zeus is getting a minor nerf. Detonate Charge used to be instant when you push the button. Now 0.2 of a second delay. And under 20 minutes for that, all of that. So let me know what you think of the buffs. and nerfs and changes. Make sure you hit the follow button, subscribe, whatever. Also, like I said, I stream mostly on Twitch. Make sure you check me out on Twitch there as well. Also, check out the Smite Little League. I do coach a team there. So if you're watching from that, hi, how are you? Either way, take care. I'll see you all next time.